The dark crimes of James Worthy aren't what you think they are. Sure, everyone knows about Big Game James and his clutch performances. But what if I told you that behind those iconic goggles was a man whose personal scandals and physical collapse told a completely different story? A story of arrest, decline, and a body that betrayed one of basketball's most celebrated stars. Imagine being arrested for soliciting two undercover cops, then showing up mid-game and dropping 24 points in front of a cheering crowd. That's not fiction. That's James Worthy on November 15, 1990. The Lakers were in Houston for a routine game against the Rockets. Nothing seemed unusual about the day until Worthy made a phone call that would forever change how we view the man behind the legend. He contacted an escort service that was under active surveillance by the Houston Police Department's Vice Squad. The call wasn't random, it was calculated. Worthy allegedly requested two women and offered to pay them for sexual conduct. What he didn't know was that he was walking straight into a trap. Two undercover female officers responded to his request. When they arrived at his Houston hotel, Worthy found himself face-to-face with the law instead of the companionship he thought he was purchasing. The arrest was swift and brutal to his reputation. He was charged with 2 counts of solicitation of prostitution, a Class B misdemeanor under Texas law. Each count carried potential penalties of up to $1,000 in fines and 180 days in jail. But here's where the story gets truly bizarre. Released on just $500 bail, Worthy didn't slink away in shame. He didn't hide from the media or make excuses. Instead, he walked straight into the arena during the second quarter of that same game. The Houston crowd, knowing exactly what had happened, gave him a standing ovation. His teammates rallied around him. Magic Johnson publicly declared his unwavering support, saying they still loved him no matter what he did. Worthy played that night. He scored 24 points on 10 of 23 shooting. The Lakers won. It was as if the arrest had never happened, like some twisted fever dream that somehow made him stronger rather than weaker. Initially, Worthy pleaded innocent to the charges. A trial was set for January 28, 1991, but eventually he changed his plea to no contest. The final judgment was almost laughably light. 1 year of probation, a $1,000 fine, and 40 hours of community service. That's it. No jail time, no career suspension, no massive corporate backlash. His $1 million contract with New Balance remained intact. There were no widespread reports of endorsement losses. The incident seemed to vanish into the background noise of his career, absorbed into his narrative without fundamentally altering his trajectory. This was 1990 when information moved slower and public relations crises were managed differently than today. But while Worthy survived his legal troubles relatively unscathed, his body was already beginning to betray him in ways that no amount of public support could fix. The decline actually started much earlier than most people realize. Back in his rookie season, on April 10, 1983, Worthy suffered a fractured tibia against the Phoenix Suns while attempting to tap in a missed shot. He landed wrong and his leg snapped. The injury ended his rookie campaign and forced him to miss the playoffs, where the Lakers were swept by Philadelphia in the finals. That early injury may have been more significant than anyone realized at the time. When Worthy returned for the 1983-84 season, he started as a power forward. But by December, Lakers coach Pat Riley publicly stated that Worthy wasn't a legitimate power forward due to his rebounding. Riley called him a finesse guy who liked to get the ball and go with it. The Los Angeles Times described him as a small forward in a big forward's body. The broken leg had subtly changed how the coaching staff viewed his physical capabilities. They moved him back to small forward, often bringing him off the bench. Even though he physically recovered, the injury had planted seeds of doubt about his robustness in the more physically demanding power forward role. Then came the eye injury in 1985 during a game against the Utah Jazz. Worthy suffered a scratched cornea that forced him to start wearing protective goggles. Those goggles became his signature look, making him instantly recognizable to fans. He claimed he continued wearing them even after his eye healed because children who wore glasses had written him letters. He wanted to be a role model, showing that visual challenges shouldn't hold anyone back. It was a nice story, but it was also another sign that his body was accumulating damage. The real beginning of the end came in 1991 during Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals against Portland. Worthy suffered a high ankle sprain that would fundamentally alter the trajectory of his career. This wasn't just another injury he could play through. This was different. The sprain crippled his effectiveness as the Lakers advanced to face Chicago in the NBA Finals. Despite the pain, he played 45 minutes in Game 1, scoring 22 points through sheer determination. But he was forced to completely change his offensive approach. He couldn't drive effectively anymore. He had to back into the basket and rely on outside shots instead of drawing fouls and getting to the free throw line. Worthy acknowledged the significant pain, saying he had to mentally overcome it and block out every little twinge. The injury was so severe that he re-injured the ankle in Game 4 and missed Game 5 entirely as the Lakers fell to Michael Jordan's Bulls in 5 games. And while Worthy's explosiveness was fading, the game itself kept evolving. If you want front-row access to the modern NBA, where science keeps stars playing longer, check out Fubo. Stream every game, every moment, live. See how today's players avoid the physical breakdown that ended careers like Worthy's. That ankle sprain wasn't just a temporary setback, it was the beginning of a fundamental shift in his physical capabilities. Unlike his recovery from the 1983 leg injury, this time his explosive athleticism didn't return. His signature quickness and ability to drive to the basket were permanently compromised, but the worst was yet to come. In 1992, Worthy underwent season-ending knee surgery. While the specific procedure isn't detailed in every account, the context strongly suggests it was microfracture surgery, a common but often career-destroying intervention of that era. His knee had reportedly been degenerating for approximately 5 years before the surgery, with the ankle injury likely accelerating the deterioration. The impact was immediate and devastating. The surgery robbed much of his quickness and leaping ability. He became super slow, described as a shell of his former self. His ability to finish on fast breaks and drive to the hoop, the hallmarks of his offensive game, were effectively eliminated. He was forced to rely heavily on jump shots, fundamentally altering his playing style. This was the early 1990s, when knee injuries were more fatal than today. Surgical techniques were much inferior to modern procedures. There was little emphasis on recovery and player management. Injuries that are now temporary setbacks were frequently career-ending. Back then, the cumulative toll was crushing. Worthy's heavy mileage from high school, college, and 8 straight years of grueling training camps and practices under Pat Riley had worn his body down. He battled horrible tendinitis even in his prime years. The physical nature of the game meant that many forwards like him were washed up early by today's standards. Magic Johnson's retirement in November 1991 made everything worse. Magic's departure threw the Lakers franchise into disarray. The dynamic between Magic and Worthy was highly synergistic. Magic's passing and court vision created numerous easy scoring opportunities. Without Magic, Worthy's efficiency suffered as opposing defenses could focus more intently on him. His statistical performance began showing serious decline in the early 1990s. His best seasons were 1990 and 1991, when he averaged around 21 points per game. But after the 1992 All-Star game, everything fell apart. His field goal percentage and true shooting percentage decreased drastically. He became too slow, not as quick defensively, and eventually finished his career as a backup. By 1994, at just 33 years old, James Worthy was done. His career was over, not because of scandal or controversy, but because his body had simply given up on him. The man who once possessed first-step quickness that was described as better than Michael Jordan's, at his peak, couldn't generate easy buckets anymore. His incredible foot speed for a player of his size was gone. The explosive drives and fast breaks that defined his game were memories. Worthy's decline wasn't gradual. It was sudden and brutal. The combination of inferior sports medicine, accumulated wear and tear, and a series of devastating injuries created a perfect storm that ended his prime years before he turned 30. The irony is stunning. The same man who walked into an arena hours after being arrested for solicitation and dominated on the basketball court couldn't overcome the limitations of his own deteriorating body. Legal troubles barely scratched his reputation, but torn cartilage and damaged tendons destroyed his career. His Hall of Fame induction in 2003 and inclusion on the NBA's 50th and 75th anniversary teams serve as reminders of what he accomplished, but they also highlight what could have been. With modern medical knowledge and recovery protocols, Worthy might have played into his late 30s instead of retiring at 33. James Worthy's story isn't just about a great player who had some bad luck. It's about the harsh reality that talent and determination can't always overcome the physical limitations of the human body. It's about how the very thing that made him special, his explosive athleticism, became the source of his downfall when it was taken away. The dark crimes of James Worthy weren't committed in a Houston hotel room. They were committed by time, by inferior medical science, and by a body that couldn't keep up with the demands he placed on it. That's the real tragedy of Big Game James. He didn't go out with a bang. He faded. And maybe that's the most unforgivable crime of all.